Chapter 30 The Hidden Highway. The sun had only just been setting when everyone bedded down for the night, and although sleeping on a makeshift mat on the hard ground was never as comfortable as a bed, Miranda slept peacefully, mostly due to the fact that she spent the night in Aghanim's arms. She had always been the more independent kind of girl, to the point where her father sometimes worried that she would never find a husband, and that suited her just fine. But then she met Aghanim on the road one day. She was in love. There was no other way to describe how she felt about the robed wizard that she had really only known for a few days. Not that she was the type to fall in love easily, but once a man had literally swept her off her feet, helped her escape a sewer full of hungry Zoras, broken into a palace with her, and saved her from someone as sick and twisted as Lord Vyre, how could any girl resist? However, the comfort of his embrace also made the night pass that much more quickly, and before Miranda knew it, the sun had come up again. Having done all they could to recover the chests in order to save Zelda, today was the day they would finally begin moving against Ganondorf, so there had only been time for a good morning kiss before everyone had to get ready. Impa made breakfast while they all got dressed, and it was a rather silent meal, since Miranda figured they were all just as nervous as she was. The worst part of it was that, in order for Aghanim's plan to work, they would all have to split up. Well, at least Link and Facade got to go together, although she wasn't sure if it was worse to fight Ganondorf with a partner or enter Spectacle Rock alone. "I don't see how we can get into Spectacle Rock without being discovered," Link said, breaking the silence. "That area of Death Mountain is over 2 days' travel from here, and even if we could avoid Ganondorf's minions during the day, what happens if they discover us at night?"
"I have a solution for that," the old woman replied. "There are only a few who know this, but hundreds of years ago, back when Hyrule was at war, a series of tunnels were placed in order to let the current king move freely and undetected. Not just any tunnels, mind you, but carved into secret locations, where one could enter at one point and come out again all the way across the rural outskirts."
"That sounds like some powerful magic," Aghanim commented. "I've heard stories of such portals before, but I've never actually seen one."
"And you're only telling us about this now?" Facade asked. "I understand the need to keep royal secrets, Impa, but think of the hell that all of us could have avoided if we had known about them sooner." "There was no point in telling you sooner," Impa replied casually. "You see, in order to gain access to these ancient tunnels, an equally ancient artifact is required. A bracelet, actually, one that had vanished from the vault of the North Palace a number of years ago, and was feared lost forever, until last night when I saw it on Lady Miranda's wrist."
Everyone turned to look at her, and Miranda couldn't help blushing a little when she showed the object to them. Yes, she had stolen it from the vault, and no, she did not intend to give it back, nor did she plan on returning the key or the candle. However, instead of being upset with her for stealing, a problem that she genuinely couldn't help, the others were happy. This meant that they could go right to Spectacle Rock, or rather as close to it as the nearest tunnel was located. After going through such a long and perilous quest so far, no one wanted to waste any more time, so Impa led them out of the cave, where they walked for about an hour through the forest. There was a beautiful pond up ahead, and it made sense to her that such a place would be a hiding place for a royal entrance, but instead the old woman led them up to an ugly old bush that was just sitting there, slightly apart from the others.
"This is it?"
Miranda asked.
"Then what do I do?"
"Touch it," Impa replied. It seemed simple enough. More than likely, she would have to shove the bush and its roots out of the way, with the strength granted by the bracelet being the only way to do so. However, she had only just put her hands on the leaves when the bracelet vibrated, and there was a rumbling sound as the whole thing began to slide backwards. Apparently, the bush had been planted on top of an old stone plate, and a dark hole was revealed when it stopped moving. The top of a carved stone staircase could be seen, but after the third step it was too dark to see.
"Well done," Impa continued. "The secret highway of the southern outskirts is now available to you, at least until Lady Miranda goes through, so you must go in last, my dear. Prince Facade, you and Link must go first, and although you will not be able to see, just keep your mind focused on the front gate of Spectacle Rock, and you will find your way."
There was a moment of hesitation as Link and Facade looked at each other nervously, but then they each took a deep breath to calm themselves before walking, confidently, down the stairs into the darkness. A moment later, the sound of their footsteps disappeared. Miranda called after them, but there was no answer, so apparently the old magic was still working. "And now the two of you," the old woman explained. "Miranda, you are the only one who has been inside Spectacle Rock before, so you need to take Aghanim's hand and think of the balcony that you described to me last night, the one you escaped from. The road will take you as close as possible, and then once you get inside, you must tell Aghanim how to get to the chamber where Zelda is being held. But do not forget your own quest. I will follow a few steps behind and remain in a hidden location with the rest of the Triforce until you have the other pieces." This seemed like a pretty heavy burden, but it was what they all needed to do in order to defeat Ganondorf and save Zelda, so she took Aghanim's hand, and they slowly started down the staircase. The darkness quickly engulfed them, so she moved closer to the robed wizard, holding onto him tightly as they reached the bottom of the stairs. Suddenly, she realized that she couldn't see the light from the surface anymore, so she took out the magic candle, and when it lit up she could see Aghanim but nothing else. There was nothing around them, no walls, no ceiling, nothing but darkness that was so thick that the ground couldn't even be seen underneath their feet. It was a strange sensation as well as disorienting, but there were people counting on her, so panic was unacceptable at this point. Turning off the candle and putting it away, Miranda led Aghanim forward through the darkness, and after only a few steps, another light appeared at the top of the staircase that was now right in front of them. Just as Impa had described, they were in a different place when they emerged from the hole, and if she wasn't mistaken, that place was somewhere high up in Death Mountain. Hopefully the passage had at least brought them within a couple hours of Spectacle Rock, since it would hurt the plan if they still had to travel for a whole day, but then she saw it. Off in the distance, slightly below their location, was a small feature that had been carved into the rock, and when she squinted to see it more clearly, a moment of joy flowed through her when she realized that it was the balcony.
"That's it!" she exclaimed, pointing to it. "That's the balcony where me and Zelda almost—"
Suddenly, the joy and excitement was replaced with sadness and regret as Miranda remembered being unable to save her cousin. It had been awful the way Ganondorf had treated them, chaining them up like animals and hitting them and threatening to starve them, and Miranda had only been there for a couple of hours. Zelda had been in that horrible place for a very long time now, and her stomach knotted when she imagined what Ganondorf had been doing to her since the escape. "Don't worry, we'll get her out," Aghanim said, placing his hand on her shoulder. "With all four of us working together, Ganondorf doesn't stand a chance." Miranda was focusing so hard on not getting all choked up that she hadn't even replied to his reassuring statement, when she gasped as she felt him pick her up. They then vanished, reappearing closer to the balcony in the distance, only to vanish again just like they had done to get across the lake to Snake Palace. Aghanim seemed to be having an easier time about it, probably since he didn't have to stay in the air this time, quickly closing the distance on the balcony until finally they reappeared standing on it. Well, they were inside, and now it was time to split up. The labyrinth of Spectacle Rock was now before them, and somehow she knew that this was going to be more dangerous than anything they had faced so far. Miranda was so nervous, in fact, that she was having trouble telling him how to get to the central chamber from there. But then her words were stopped when he put his hands on her cheeks and pulled her in for another kiss. "I love you, Miranda," he whispered, stopping all of her thoughts. It may have been inappropriate for such a lengthy interruption during such an important part of the quest, but she confessed that she loved him as well, and for a short time they just stood there hugging each other. Thankfully, none of Ganondorf's minions happened to come into the room during this time, and one quick kiss later, it was time to get going. Once she had given him the directions, Aghanim vanished, reappearing at the hallway junction for a second before vanishing out of sight, and then it was time for Miranda to go as well. For a moment, she wondered how she was going to find the hidden chests, but then she remembered that after everything that had happened, she still had the compass. So she looked at it, and then followed the arrow out of the room, being careful to stay in the shadows as much as she could as she started down the corridor.